Good evening. I arranged with Lydia to do a bit of a startup meeting today. We're just embarking on really preparing the National Register nomination for Sugar Loaf, and but wanted to introduce it to all those who are interested and explain briefly what the program's all about, and then entertain questions you may have about where we're going with it. This is kind of difficult to see now with the light and all, but this is essentially the working boundaries for the historic district, which goes up to the gateway, or close to the gateway at the north, and down to the Seligman property in the south. We had initially proposed a district boundary that included the Seligman property, but the state felt that this concentration of a commercial core was where the district's significance was, and that the Seligman property represented something different, you know, being one of these peripheral farms around the hamlet. But we've decided to pursue the Seligman property individually as we do the district. But you can see the essentially the boundaries that we're working with, and see the the real concentration of buildings up there on the upper end. Next slide. I showed the church in the opening slide, and here's the tavern. Sugar Loaf has a really good catalog of historic buildings for the kind of hamlet that it is. It's got the community church, it's got a tavern or two, it's got workshops, and the houses that the dwellings in which the various merchants and craftspeople and people that worked in the hamlet resided in. There are a number of these taverns left scattered around with their two-story porches and stuff. It's really an iconic building in hamlet settings. And the dwellings that line both sides of the street are representative of the 19th century development of the hamlet. I'm told that some of the buildings in the district still retain pieces, fragments of earlier buildings. These buildings represent kind of a second stage of redevelopment in the hamlet. But the concentration of them and this streetscape pattern is really quite special, which is something we emphasized when proposing the historic district. Of course, they've now received this overlay of kind of craft shop appearances, and and Sugar Loaf has a remarkable history in that regard as a craft village and a destination for people coming up out of the city to shop here, and we wanted to recognize that, and fortuitously it now fits in the period of significance that we established for the district. The National Register generally likes to consider properties 50 years old or older, or districts 50 years old or older. So 10 years ago, these were whenever the state came through the first time, 10, 20 years ago, these changes were felt to be alterations that were non-contributing to a historic district. But now that we can apply it to the theme of the craft village, they are now clearly contributing buildings in the historic district. So that's one of the things I'm really interested in. Is we will write about the changing history of the hamlet and the way it physically adapted to that, or was adapted, But the craft period is now something of history. All of us now look back 50 years at things that are historic and wonder. Next slide, please. So this is looking north down to the railroad crossing. There are more of a mix of still later properties down here, which we will endeavor to encompass in the district. But this is probably the area in which the most changes have taken place in recent years. I thought I'd quickly go over what the National Register, state National Registers are all about. As it says here, the state National Registers are the official lists of buildings, structures, districts, objects, sites significant in history, architecture, archaeology, engineering, so on and so forth. The state register and the National Register are identical lists. State register was established to provide a list to be used in state planning, whereas like the National Register was established in 1969 as a list to inform federal planning, federal projects about the potential impacts they may have on historic resources. So in New York, the State Historic Preservation Office, or the State Historic Preservation Office, which is in Albany, administers the National Register, and it'll be through them that we develop this nomination package. These are some of the results of a listing. The primary ones, as I mentioned, both these lists identify properties in the context of state and federal planning, so that if a plan has a potential impact on a historic resource, the State Historic Preservation Office makes an effort to remove or mitigate those adverse effects. The second one is owners of commercial properties are eligible to apply for tax credits, both federal and state tax credits for redevelopment projects. Those are pretty substantial redevelopment projects that qualify for those tax credits. Additionally, there's a homeowner tax credit associated with the state register that provides tax credits for homeowners who need to make repairs or improvements like roofs or furnaces, or build a porch that wasn't there, to provide some incentive and some credits for doing that. And then not-for-profit municipal organizations can apply for grants. Many grants, preservation grants, require that properties be listed on the National Register. And most importantly, here at the bottom, it's a popular misconception, particularly in the New York City environs and the New York City landmarks law, which is very stringent in terms of its review of work on historic properties. But the National and State Registers place no restrictions on property owners. The restrictions they have are placed on government agencies. So what we're embarking on now is preparing a National Register nomination submission. There's a form that gets completed. It requires a narrative description of existing conditions in the district, characteristics that distinguish it, its significance, and then also a second narrative about what makes it significant, and basically backing it up with a historical essay or an essay about the history of the hamlet. That gets, and then it's augmented by photographs and maps and such, and that is then submitted to the state for their review and approval. Once we work out a completed nomination with the SHPO staff, SHPOs, we call them SHPO. It then gets scheduled for a formal review by a state review board, which meets quarterly. And then they make a recommendation that it be nominated, and the State Historic Preservation Officer nominates it. This process generally takes 6 months at the least, and we're actually aiming to have it done and before the State Review Board in the spring. So that's my story. I came here to talk to you about what I'll be doing, but I am hoping that property owners from the district might have some information to share about their houses that will help me moving forward in developing a history for the hamlet. Here at the bottom, hard to see, are links to websites for both the National Register and the state website. And then at the bottom, there's my contact information, which if you want to make a note of it, I'll read it since it's hard to see. It's my name, Neil Larson, NEIL-LARSON, the numeral 8 @gmail. Now, what questions can I answer for you all? Yes?
Not really a question. You know, we were before Nancy George, president of the Chester Historical Society. Our exhibit this year at the 1950 Erie Station is Sugar Loaf from the beginning to current times, and I think there'd be a lot of really valuable information in that if you get a chance to see it.
That's timely. I'll make an effort to get down there. Any other, yes?
So, we own homes in this district.
Uh-huh.
We're reasonably new homeowners there.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, we don't have any history ourselves, but would be super interested in learning the history of the property, and then, I guess doing whatever it is as a homeowner to help
Mm-hmm.
you kind of do that.
Well, I expect we'll learn a lot as we develop the nomination,
Right.
for all of us, for me and for you,
Right.
for
Is it-
homeowners.
I guess what my question is is it incumbent upon the homeowner themselves to like participate and write these essays, or?
No.
And if someone wanted to be more proactive in that, could they be?
If they want to do what?
Like wanted to be more, like, are you looking for people to help with that process, or? you
I'm
guys
looking
are-
for information.
Right, and then you really.
So
kinda
if you have
take it all.
information about what went on with your property in the past, or anything that would contribute to developing a historical narrative about the hamlet. Yeah.
My name is Don Duke. Since 1984, I've been a member of the local advisory committee. We advise the planning board, who is the architectural review board, and have ultimate responsibility. But I have a number of documents, drawings, letters, guideline recommendations, and I'd be happy to share that with you at any later date of your choice.
Yeah, that's great. Make sure I get your
I see.
contact info before we break up. Yeah.
Just so I can be clear in front of all these witnesses here, if I live in Sugar Loaf, Clay Boone, right across from the restaurant. If I wanted to take my cedar shakes off and put the vinyl red siding on there.
You'd have to deal with him, not with them.
Okay. Cause we've been down this road before. It was more like 30 years ago. And there were a lot of concerned folks that Albany or somebody was going to tell each individual.
No, like I said, that's a popular misconception, is that once your property is listed on the National Register, the state or the feds are gonna tell you what to do. That's not the case. That's all a matter of local reviews.
Yeah, Architectural Review Board.
Yep.
Yep.
Yes, Leslie?
Well, it's sort of a general question. There's a property in the village of Chester that is listed on the Cultural Resource Information site, as eligible to be on the National Register. However, it was sold, I'm gonna guess about a year ago, and the new owner has clad the entire building with vinyl siding, put in replacement windows. There's probably very little left except for just the general
shell.
shape of it.
Yeah.
If that were, would that change the eligibility?
If it's if it was determined eligible individually, yeah,
Yeah.
it would.
It was.
An individual designation requires a certain amount of exterior and interior integrity, material integrity, vinyl and replacement windows become an issue. In a district setting, it's less of a issue. But from the sounds of it, it sounds like that guy kind of compromised its eligibility.
And as far as the Maple Avenue School that I mentioned earlier, it was constructed in 1935 as a PWA project, and Bill Cranger determined, or the SHPO
state.
determined that it was eligible a while back. Does that have to be confirmed? I mean, it wouldn't be part of a district, it would be individual
Well, it's been long enough.
nomination.
It's been long enough, you'd probably want to get a updated opinion from the state about its eligibility,
Okay, so you would need an updated,
I think.
if it's been a
You know,
while.
and actually the state's better now, looking positively on individual buildings than previously, not so much of a gatekeeper anymore.
So if there's been a number of years intervening between the eligibility determination and the present project to actually nominate it, you would probably need to have it looked
Yeah,
at
you
again.
should contact the
SHPO.
state field rep and tell them what you have or show them what you had given them before and get their
Okay,
direction on what to do.
thank you.
Anybody else? Yes?
So for those of us living in some of these old houses along Main Street,
Yeah,
will we be contacted or do we have to contact somebody?
good question. Once we submit a draft nomination form to the state, and as it's getting scheduled for a formal review about its nomination, letters will be sent out to all property owners, and another public meeting will be organized with a state representative to answer any questions that homeowners have.
But how are you gonna get the information? You said you need data. The data's gonna come from the people and the buildings. How do we get that data to you?
My email.
Well, no, you're not gonna, see, I'm not gonna do a narrative, 20-page narrative on a house that's from the 1700s on your email. So how do we?
Oh, you're gonna write one?
No, I'm not.
Oh,
But I'd be
you
happy-
have one?
I'd be happy to talk to you.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm not gonna do it through email.
Oh, well, we can have a phone conversation.
Okay.
We can develop a nomination form based on the information we already have historically on Sugar Loaf. There's a history, good history written on it, and other things. So I'm just asking for more information to help provide some of the nuances that haven't been really thought of over the years. Yeah.
Well, in addition to perhaps emailing you whatever, information we have about our particular dwelling or dwellings that we know in the hamlet, would you be interested, or have you already done, would you be interested in coming in and seeing inside the homes at all? Would that help?
In a district, no, it's all about the exterior environment.
Oh, okay.
As much as I might like to come in and see your house.
Just asking if that would be helpful.
Yeah.
You know, any potential negatives?
Yeah?
Are there any negatives?
Oh, are there any
According to
negatives?
this, yes.
Well, you ask me, I work with the program, and I don't think so. You know, and there are these financial benefits now that go with it. You know, will have a positive effect on, you know, the image building and promotion of the village, or maybe even directing or suggesting ways in which to, you know, to improve or change certain things in the district to meet current planning. But no, it's really meant to be kind of a document to provide a basis of information for the community to work from. I mean, we've done a lot of nominations for downtown business districts, and you know, they're good for promotion, and you know, good to maybe stimulate interest in improving various properties and stuff. But I don't see any negatives. You know, people will say that you know, it's just one more layer of government, you know, involved in your life. But you know, it's pretty neutral. Again, you know, when controversy happens, it's usually on the local level, not on the state and federal level. Yeah.
Well, the positive contributions are really quite substantial, and you can see this just by traveling right down this road to Warwick Village.
Mm-hmm.
Warwick Village created a historic district in 1984, one of the first to do so in this area.
I did it.
And it had an amazing effect. I mean, we really attribute that district to stimulating economic activity. There's a lot of good, strong businesses that have come in to Warwick since the historic district.
Mm-hmm.
Travel down Main Street, every building has a business, and they're all doing very well. And Warwick has become a destination. So it's helped, it has helped business. It has stimulated historic restoration. Since 1984, we've had at least 18 that I know of buildings that have been restored within that district, leading out of 1984's designation. So it really, it's had a wonderful effect, and a unifying, a community building effect too. It was a project that everyone, just about everyone was interested in. It brought people together, whether they were Republicans, Democrats, Jews, Christians, whatever. This was a value that everyone bought into. And I would say that looking at historic districts in a broad sense as an historian, I think it does no harm. I don't see any real negatives, but I see an awful lot of positives, an awful lot. And I feel that Sugar Loaf has enough diversity here, historical diversity, to qualify. I mean, we've got a wonderful example of a Sears Roebuck prefabricated house. Speaks volumes about America, the history of American building and construction. We had Mr. Minard Sutton's house down the street here. He was really responsible for building a dairy industry here when the railroad came through refrigerated milk cars. I mean, we can go on and on in the arts, in business, in construction, in religion. The little Methodist church here was one of the first Methodist churches in this region, this part of the country, in the Hudson Valley. It's a Greek Revival Doric temple architectural structure. There are very few of them in lower New York State that are in such a pristine condition. The only changes to that building, exterior changes, were the stained glass windows were put in the 1890s. And we have a lot of documented buildings here too. The 1830 parsonage of that church is documented through the church historian over the past. And the church itself, we have a lot of documentation on that. A lot has been researched on the Sugar Loaf. There's a lot
Thanks
of
to you.
information. The Chester Historical Society, this show will certainly reveal it, because the show that's going on now in the 1915 railroad station in downtown Chester, devoted almost exclusively to Sugar Loaf's history is very impressive. I visit a lot of museums for over 50 years as a professional historian, and that show down there really is extremely impressive, and it is loaded with information. And I can't see why Sugar Loaf shouldn't be eligible for historic designation. One of the fathers of surrealism in America that's right up the road here, Kurt Sigmund. I mean, one can go on and on here of people
Well, it's already
who
been-
lived here who were innovative.
Yeah, it's already been determined eligible, so now it's getting it into the process and getting it on the National Register. But yeah, I mean, you know, Sugar Loaf is a more vernacular, kind of hamlet than Warwick, but it has its own potential, has its own history to capitalize on. And like I said earlier, I think the craft village tradition is something to sustain and rejuvenate if necessary. Until recently, I lived in Woodstock, which is about the other craft village that compares to this one. And, you know, like you say with Warwick, there's not a historic district in Woodstock, but Woodstock has created an environment there that attracts people to the shops and restaurants and other things that they have there. So it's clearly possible for it to happen here.
You know, let me just interrupt for 1 second. Town Supervisor Bobby Valentine has been an incredible proponent and support for the town of Sugar Loaf for this project and many others. So before he leaves, he has to go to a wake. Could you give us 2 minutes, Mr. Valentine, about the significance of this?
Yep.
And just if you want to allude to some of the other things happening in Sugar Loaf, but you've been incredibly important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say it's an honor to be the supervisor at this point in time when we have the funds, the ability, and have a supportive board that is willing to go through with these projects. Rob is a resident of Sugar Loaf for 27 years, and I'm a big fan of history. So, and with the ever-changing environment in Orange County, you know, people moving in from the city and different places, it's really important for us to preserve Sugar Loaf and communities like that, because they're just going to disappear over time. And our investment in this right now will keep it there for like generations to come. And the town of Chester supports this 100%. And whatever we can do to move this forward or support the project, it would be an honor for us to do it. I know everybody knows we just got a little information where we would be obtaining the road from the county for the town, so that would also lend to assisting in the historic preservation part of it, because we could do the code, structure a code around the road and improvements in the road that would lend to the preservation of the historic district. So I think it's a great time for Sugar Loaf, and the fact that we bought this theater in 2018 and how successful it's also become a destination. And I think the business benefits for Sugar Loaf they'll be incredible, and I think it's going to be a great thing going forward. And just want everybody to know that you have my support and the board's support at this time, and we're big fans, and we want to see it move forward. So thank you for listening. Okay.
So could you say a couple words about the significance of Sugar Loaf and your exhibit and how this fits in? Thank you.
Well, as Nancy Hom mentioned, Chester Historical Society has a pretty extensive exhibit on Sugar Loaf from geological time right up to the present. So they're open on Saturdays 10 to 2, Sundays 2 to 3. And so if you can get up there on the weekend and check it out, you might enjoy it.
1 to 3.
1 to 3, sorry, on Sunday. If you'd like to, if you can't make those times, you can contact me. I happen to have the key, and I think we can arrange a personal tour for you. I'd like to make a couple points that were brought up, and one was about restrictions on your property. If it's a historic district, there really are no restrictions on the property, there's restrictions on the government. I can tell you what happened to my grandmother's house, which was, we think, built around the beginning of the 1800s. Is the state decided to widen the road in front of her place, and they decided to widen it on her side of the road, and they took off all the porches on the houses that were close to the road, like my grandmother's. And if you're in a historic district, the state or whoever the agency is, because they'll be using federal and state money, would have to mitigate that impact if it's in a historic district. So it provides quite a bit of protections for a locality and your property against government action. The other thing I'd like to mention is, as you may be aware, there was a lot of resistance to them forming the historic district in the village of Goshen. But they got the district formed, and after a few years, people noticed that the real estate values in the district were higher than those outside the district. And as I understand now, there's a lot of people who are clamoring to expand the district. So I'll let Goshen speak to themselves on that for themselves. But I'm not an expert. I know a few people who are, like Neil. And so if you have any questions or you need to get a hold of Neil and you're having trouble, get a hold of me and I'll try to connect you. So I'm here as an employee of the town and a resource for the town and all of its citizens. So if I can help, just get a hold of me. My email is on the town's website, and if you'd rather talk by phone, email me, I'll call you back.
Just to clarify something Cliff said, recently had somebody complain about National Register listing because he believed it would raise his real estate value and raise his taxes because of the designation. But studies have been done to essentially show that that's really kind of a non-starter. That listing on the register doesn't bump you up into a higher assessment bracket. Any other questions? Yeah?
So my understanding is you'll be working towards creating Sugar Loaf to place it on the National Historic Register at the hamlet itself. And I keep on hearing individuals here talking about their individual properties.
Sure.
Are you going to get involved with placing individual parcels, individual pieces
No.
of property? So
Just the Seligman
okay,
property.
So you're
because,
just looking at the hamlet.
they're all considered contributing properties within a historic district. There's no individual, I mean, the church conceivably is individually eligible, that tavern is probably individually eligible, but they will be nominated as part of a historic district, as components of a district.
Yeah, could you allude more on renovation? If something happens to a home, you talked about it, if Mrs. Logathetis wants to put a modern facade or something falls down, is she able to once it's designated historic?
She better not.
A homeowner can do whatever they want to their property. National Register listing, State Register listing doesn't have any say over that. The worst that can happen is that it's altered to a degree that it's removed from the National Register because it no longer qualifies, but no one really goes through that effort. Yeah.
Will the process still go through the town planning board as it is now? Or will there be other approval
No, well,
procedures?
the town board and planning board will be notified that the historic district is going to be reviewed for nomination by the state, but it's not submitted to them in advance for any kind of approval.
But right now, renovations and changes and various things do go through the architectural review through
Yeah.
the planning board. That won't change.
That doesn't change anything, yeah. You have a boundary and you have your advisory role there, and that's nothing, that doesn't change. It gives you perhaps more leverage if a property owner can use the homeowner tax credits to, leverage their renovation work or whatever. Or if there is an income producing property that can use the federal tax credits for rehab, that's something that you should be aware of, when it comes before you. Yeah.
Could you give us some more examples of places, say, in the Orange County area that have gotten this designation? I know Warwick and Goshen have been mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Are there others that come to mind?
Newburgh, Newburgh is one of the largest historic districts. And now we're working with expanding it. Towns like, equivalent sized towns like New Paltz in Ulster County has their commercial district on the National Register. We've done a number of them in Sullivan, Liberty, Monticello, and I'm trying to think of others.
Montgomery.
Here in Orange County, Montgomery, the village of Montgomery has a historic district.
And Monroe just established a historic district.
Yeah.
The village of Monroe, yeah.
There are 9 in Orange County. I was just looking at it, you just said it a while ago.
Maybe I missed it, but reality check with this process, where are we? What are our odds? Are there any risks for us not getting this? Will we get this?
Oh, you'll definitely get it. It's been predetermined to be eligible, so we just need to essentially do the paperwork, which is what we're starting now.
Gotcha. And time schedule will be again spring?
Like I said, we're aiming to have it before the review board in the spring. That relies on the state's agenda, or priorities in their agenda, but that's what we're aiming for. Yes?
I might just add as another positive, at least with the work experience, is it helps organizations within the historic district to get loans and grants from foundations and so forth. We've acquired quite a lot of money to do work in Warwick because we're a historic district, and foundations are more amenable to supporting
absolutely. Yep.
structures, organizations within historic districts. And we're also doing that with farmland preservation too. We've attracted millions of dollars, and they aren't taxpayers' dollars in Warwick, they're dollars that are coming from a variety of foundations and organizations like Scenic Hudson, Open Space Institute, I can go on and on and on. I mean, it's a wonderful way for a community to get outside money to do things, for tree planting, all kinds of things. And if you're in a historic district, you do have an advantage, a competitive edge.
Yeah, it essentially certifies for these granting agencies that there's something significant there.
Thank you for coming.